同学们好，我是 Haynes 老师。Hi everyone, I'm Mrs. Haynes, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the IB Mandarin ab initio written assignment. Now, this is actually a PowerPoint I've edited. I found on the internet and is very reliable, but I've actually added some extra things in but used this person's template, so I wanted you to know that this wasn't originally my document and I've edited it. So firstly, we need to talk about what the written assignment is. Now, according to the IB guide, the written assignment is actually a culmination of independent research that a student might have carried out on one of the prescribed topics from the ab initio course in the final year of the program. So this means that you can only complete the written assignment in Year 12. Your teacher is encouraged to guide you in selecting an appropriate topic and a suitable title for the assignment. However, further to that, teachers really don't play a big role in the written assignment per se. The aim for the assignment is for students to describe a chosen topic before identifying differences and or similarities between their own culture and the target culture. And finally, after they've done that, students are required to reflect on those differences and or similarities by responding to a set of guiding questions. So the description, comparison and reflection must be presented in the target language, so in this case in Chinese, in one continuous piece of word processed work under the headings provided. Now, this particular assessment task is an externally assessed thing. So this means it doesn't get marked by your teacher. And it gets sent off to the IB. So basically what we have to think about is the aim of the assignment is to describe your chosen topic by identifying these differences and similarities and to reflect on those differences and similarities. Pretty simple. Now, these are the prescribed topics that you can choose from. Now, your class probably have got up to this point. The smiley faces are the topics you might have covered so far, but each person, each school is different. And you don't have to do just the topics that you've already studied in Year 11 in the beginning of Year 12. You can do any of the prescribed topics across the 3 themes. So a really big tip for you in choosing a topic is choose something that really interests you, something that you'd like to find out more about, but something that's not too complicated. You don't want to be confusing yourself or trying to find really difficult resources to help you. It's really good if you look for something that may be of general interest to you in China. You need to find a topic that allows you to explore a cultural difference between your country and China. So in this instance, I'm from Australia, so I might want to look at how the Spring Festival is celebrated compared with Australian New Year, because they are 2 New Year festivals. I might want to look at festival customs and traditions and celebrations of my country and China and compare them. Maybe I'd like to look at clothing styles. Maybe I'd like to look at medicine and health and how people stay healthy in these countries. It's really up to you. You could even compare the climates if you're really interested in geography. You need to make sure that you have found a topic that's easy enough to write about with the language you have. You don't want to be trying to go so far outside your comfort zone that you cannot write about this topic and you need to learn a lot of new vocabulary. It's best if you try and stick to something that is manageable. You need to make sure you have some sources available in Chinese for the submission and your own language for you to use. So usually what happens is you can find things in Chinese, in newspapers, in articles, blogs, in videos, in podcasts, all kinds of things on the internet. And these are really great resources because this is pretty much all we have access to when we're in a foreign country. You might be able to find print media around in newspaper stores, like actual newspapers printed in Australia and magazines. But you can also use things in English or in your own language to help you supplement what you're doing. But the only ones that actually get submitted with your assignment are the target language articles. So what do I have to do? What are the requirements? Now, the IB guide says 250 to 300 words. Now, we need to know that this is actually 240 to 420 Chinese characters. It is different between all the languages depending on what your method of writing is. So if you hear someone say it's 250 to 300 words, that's okay if you're doing Spanish or French or German, but actually in Chinese we have to do 240 to 420. Now, you only need to find 2 to 4 sources in the target language. It's optional to have your own language resources, they go in the bibliography, but they don't get submitted. And you can see on the right-hand column, you have communicative purposes. So these are the 3 sections that you actually have to write your assignment on. So firstly, you need to include a 描述, which is a description. So basically, this is you describing what your topic is about. It's like an introduction, and it would go under this heading. The second thing you'd need to do is a 比较, which is a comparison. So this is actually the section of the assignment where you compare the 2 cultures between each other and the thing that you're trying to compare. And the third thing you need to do is a 反思, which is where you actually reflect on what you've learnt from this. And so you'll be actually answering a few set guided questions, which I'll go through a little later. Now, here is just some general ideas for you to use when you're trying to do comparisons. So you would have already learned 比, which is to compare something to another. So in this particular example, 澳洲人比中国人, Australian people compared to Chinese people, and then you make a statement. So it's actually pretty simple to set up a comparative sentence. So in this particular sentence, you'll see a very familiar word, 根据, which is meaning according to, and we see this in our paper 1 questions all the time. So you might want to use an example like 根据中国传统的观念. So according to Chinese customs or traditional concepts, and you can then make a statement. So this is actually facilitating using the information in your assignment. Now, probably the trickiest part is going to be your reflection. Most people can probably make a description pretty easily, introducing a topic, and then do some comparisons between the 2 cultures, but then you actually need to reflect on what you've learned. So you need to make sure that you've actually answered all these questions. Now, it doesn't mean that you write and type out the questions and then answer them. You've actually just got to answer them in a big composition, in a paragraph. So the first question, which aspect of your chosen topic surprised you? So the Chinese question actually asks, 所选择的话题的哪个方面令你感到意外? So you can actually use some of these words in your response to talk about why it surprised you. Now, the second question is, why do you think these cultural similarities and differences exist? 你所选择你为何认为存在这些文化方面的相似之处? Now, the third one, what might a person from the target culture find different about your chosen topic in your culture? That one would be, 对于你所选择的话题未来这所学文化的人生处，你可能会发现差异. So you can see there are some really important key words there, like 差异 is differences, 指出 is similarities, 发现 is to experience, 可能会 possible, and 文化 culture. So you need to make sure that you're trying to use some of these words in your topics. For the reflection, it's a good idea to adapt these sentences that I'm about to go through in the next few slides. So this first one here, 我对 then something 感到非常惊讶. So I toward the topic, I toward this idea, 感到非常惊讶. I was surprised. I was surprised that X had happened. 因为 or 为什么呢? Because and why, then you can explain what you're doing. Now, 和我们不一样的是, what's different from us is, and then you would make a statement, okay? Now, the second question, where it's looking at the differences, 我认为这样的文化差别是因为, I think that this is a cultural difference because, and then you can talk about why you think it's that way. 我觉得中国人可能会不太喜欢. I think that Chinese people may not like very much. So that means that I believe that Chinese people may find it difficult to, or I believe Chinese people may not accept or be used to. And this could be when you're talking about customs or something like that to relate to that third question. Now, some final things, admin. You need to make sure it's typed in simplified characters. It's under the headings as well that you've been prescribed to use. The sources are in the target language. We only submit sources that are in the target language, nothing else. Your bibliography is in a standard format with reference to all the sources in all languages. So if you decided to use sources from another language, then you can include them in the bibliography, but they don't get submitted with the other sources, as your assignment will also go through Turnitin, so it will work out how much you may have plagiarized, hopefully nothing. So that means you're going to write your bibliography in English to include all sources. Now finally, the assessment criteria used to assess this written assignment is out of 20. You can see very clearly there what they are looking for. Obviously 4 marks goes to language, so you obviously need to be using the correct language, but the quality of each of these questions that you're answering is also very important as well. So it's obviously something that you need to work on. However, your teacher does not mark this assessment task. It's actually externally moderated.